All right, today my guest is Huck Johns, and Huck spent a long time in the music business, and he's got some really cool stories, and including a call from Slash and an invite to try out for Velvet Revolver, touring with Ted Nugent, writing a song with Kid Rock, and more. So now he makes these really cool hats. He's going to tell us all about that and all these other great stories and insights in the music business. Check it out. Yeah. So you're over in what is it, Franklin, Tennessee? It's kind of by Nashville. Is that
Yeah, I'm 30 minutes south of Nashville in Franklin, Tennessee.
okay?
I don't know if you've ever been here, but it's a semi-rural area of Nashville, but it's getting clogged up around here, if you know what I mean. The word is out, so the whole country's moving here. We've been here going on our third year now, and but we love it. I mean, it's just rolling hills of green, and we have Leapers Fork here. We live in a beautiful farm neighborhood, and it's a lot different than Los Angeles, that's for sure.
Yeah. Did I hear somebody say that Vince Neil lives there or something? Or is there a lot of famous musicians that live in that area?
There's a lot of famous people that have homes here. How often they're here, I don't know. There's tons of people that live in Franklin, like Chris Stapleton and uh, the Judds. There's a lot of Nashville people that have lived here outside of Nashville. If they lived in the Nashville area, this is pretty much where they live. George Jones lived here. If you ever heard the famous story about him driving the tractor in his John Deere drunk to the party store and getting pulled over and thrown in jail for drunk driving, it was here in Franklin.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did you ever play? Because I know you're a musician, which of course we'll talk about that. Do you ever still play music in Franklin? Do you ever just go to the bars and?
Sometimes I'm known to jump up here and there. It's not a lot of rock and roll here. I'm a rock and roll guy.
Hmm.
I got pretty vast rock and roll history. I can sing anything that I enjoy. But here, I didn't move here to jump into the music industry as much. I pretty much got out of LA before it got really super expensive and more crazy, I suppose. And considering that I have a young son, he's 8 years old. He was 6 when we moved here. I wanted to get him into a better, I don't know, just a better situation, more like whenever I grew up. I grew up in south of Detroit in a suburb in a city called Lincoln Park, which is near Wyandotte, which is just south of Detroit. But nonetheless, I grew up riding my bike through the neighborhood, and hanging out with all my neighborhood buddies and playing ball and walking to school and not worried about some of the things that he was accustomed to seeing in Los Angeles. And we lived in an affluent neighborhood in Los Angeles, and he went to a private school, but nonetheless, it was very expensive. And I kind of wanted to give a shot to somewhere a little bit more traditional American, I suppose. And when COVID came and all the other things that were, jumping into his wheelhouse, I decided to get out of Dodge and give him something of a different perspective.
Yeah.
So,
Seems like a
okay,
trend with a lot of people leaving California.
yeah, it was hard to leave. I mean, I was there for 20 years. And my wife and I we had established a lifelong set of friends and a community responsibility and things that we enjoyed. But we're old parents. We wanted to make sure that he had the opportunities that we thought he deserved. So Franklin we kind of threw a dart at the map. And everyone, like I said, everyone always thinks I moved to Nashville because of my music affiliations, and no, not at all. I come here for the school system.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Well, so tell me about Detroit, though. So you grew up in Detroit, and then obviously you moved to Hollywood in like 2000. But because did you move to Hollywood for the music, right?
absolutely, yeah. In Detroit, I was in a band. My 20s. I got into the game fairly late, I would say. It wasn't like I grew up in high school, being in bands and all of that. Ironically, whenever I was hanging out at a real dive bar in Lincoln Park that was traditional for generations of my family to hang out at. And the owner went over to Japan I think 1992, and he came back with a laser disc karaoke machine that he had spent a fortune on, and we had never heard of anything like that. And he said, this is going to be huge. This is what they're doing in Japan. This is something new to America, and we're going to put it here in the bar. We kind of chuckled, and they set it up in a PA, and we assisted, and there it was, and there it sat. And we'd go in there and drink beers, me and my buddies from high school and such, and one day we started using it, and to fast forward, there was a cover band that was playing in a city over that was drawing hundreds of kids, hundreds of people doing classic rock and things, and so it really all started there. I started singing at this karaoke bar.
So you hadn't played music before? You didn't play guitar or anything before?
No, not at all. And I started singing songs, and people were just, they were really, they were, it just took off from there. I started, and then, things motivate you. So I was dating a girl that, I never dated girls that weren't attractive, I have to say. I think all women are attractive in their own way, but in my mind, I had a certain level of attractiveness that I think that I had to go for, I guess. And this girl was the end all be all, prom queen, and everything. And one day she worked at a bank, and one day she come walking out, and she had a short mini skirt on. Her hair was all teased up, and she had fishnet stockings on, and all this shit. And I said, what's this? And at the time, I think I was a semi mullet wearing pink sweater, kind of, sports, and hanging out with my buddies who all played football with the college, things like that. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to this rock club, with my friend Kim." I said, "Rock club, She goes, "Yeah, that's what I'm into. I'm into these things, and we're gonna go."
What year is this?
This has to be 1991.
Oh, okay. So right at the height of like rock, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, the end of the 80s era, in the
Yeah.
80s, you're still hanging on. So she was going to see, there's a place called the Token Lounge back in Detroit, which is still popular. It's still open. Actually, I played there, I don't know, a couple of years back with Kenny Olson. But nonetheless, I never knew these places. I didn't know shit about it. I just looked at her and went, "Wow, well, can I go?" She's like,
Yeah.
nah, it's not your thing, And I grew up on classic rock. I grew up on the Detroit rock. I grew up on listening to rock radio and things like that. But I never, I guess it was, I ingested it all, but I just never gravitated towards it. I was more of a mainstream kind of kid, because I was just following my friends, so to speak, and just kind of hanging out with what I was familiar with. And she had given me a cassette bootleg of Shake Your Moneymaker from the Black Crowes, right? And I was like, wow. What did you get? What's this? She's like, "Just listen to this." Week later, she dumps me. My heart's broken. I'm like, "Oh, wow." I listened to that tape so much, and I really loved it. And so that kind of pushed me into starting to sing, because I was hoping that she was going to walk through the door and I was going to pull the doors off, And what happened in between is a music career. I started jumping up with different bands. I would do a lot of the soulful songs. I had the voice for it. God knows how. I don't know where it really came from, because no one in my family were musicians. No one was a singer. No one had that. I came from an artistic family, an extremely artistic family, but nothing in music. And I think that's part of the reason as well I gravitated towards, being a vocalist and a front man, is because nobody was doing it. Everybody expected me to go on and be a form of, I guess, physical artist, in the sense of drawing, painting, and things like that, because I was doing a lot of that in my youth. And I kind of wanted to rebel against what everyone, I guess, expected of me. And in the early 90s, not a lot of people had balls and were doing that. Nowadays, everybody, my son's, my niece is a singer, everybody has a music career or some sort of influencer kind of approach to things, where back then it was, it's not something everybody had the balls to jump up and do. So, with that in mind, I was singing a lot with doing covers with different bands, and and getting a lot of popularity that way. And I ended up uh, putting an ad in the paper in one of the Metro Times there in Detroit, and I found this guy JC Whitelaw, and he was in a band or starting a band with Johnny B. Bedanchek, which was the drummer of the Detroit Wheels, and he had played with he played Edgar Winter's Free Ride. He played Welcome to My Nightmare with Alice Cooper. He was a world-renowned drummer, and influenced artists like Max Weinberg and Ringo Starr and all of these papers, because he was really big in the '60s.
Hmm.
And so that band really kind of elevated me, because we were very popular in Detroit radio, and we played a lot of gigs around town, and things really got cooking with Broken Toys was the name of the band. And that band pretty much introduced me to everybody that I needed to know in rock and roll. I mean, I met just everybody through Johnny and being in the band with him, and kind of learned the ropes of rock and roll. Always hoping that girl was going to walk in and catch me rocking and rolling. And then it just, it turned into me hanging out with local DJs that were very popular. And a lot of people don't know that Detroit's format for radio and rock radio was the blueprint for 90% of the rock stations in America.
Hmm.
So anything Detroit's WRIF was playing, everyone else was playing. So I hung out with all these really, really popular vested disc jockeys. And again, this is all, pre-cell phone, pre-smartphone, pre-camera, pretty much. And, you had to kick ass or you weren't accepted. So that put me in a position of getting to know a lot of traveling rock stars. My buddy owned a limousine company in Detroit. I was constantly out Tuesday to Sunday, hanging out with the Cult and the GNR guys, and guys in Kid Rock were a go-to to me. They would come off of tour during their popularity with Devil Without a Cause, and I was always the one going out, hanging out with them and jumping on stages with them. And I developed a reputation, and came really close with the Silver Bullet Band, and started hanging out with Alto Reed and that bunch a lot. Which they had a lot of parties and things like that. And one night he had a party, Alto had a party, and the guys in Buck Cherry were in town, and I ended up getting up and singing and fronting them without their singer, and they pretty much convinced me that I needed to move to Los Angeles, because I was hanging out with Kenny Olson a lot, which I still do. And Kenny Olson is the original guitar player for Kid Rock, and
Yeah, I had him on the show. I think that's what prompted this whole thing. Is like we were talking about that. So you didn't move to LA till 2000. So a lot of the rock stars and people that you met was actually in Detroit. That's how you met Kid Rock and all those guys.
Yep, they were just,
Okay.
because when they were coming to town, again, one of my really great buddies owned a limousine company, and when in my youth, they always wanted me around. I wasn't afraid to talk to anybody. I wasn't afraid to jump on stages. I wasn't afraid to do the shit that I think that they appreciated. And so they were always like, "Come on, we're going here. Come on, we're going there. So and so's in town. We got them. We got to take them out." So we kind of came, the ambassadors of Detroit when it came to a lot of these bands coming in from LA. And so I took a shot after 9/11. I thought, man, I got to get this going. So I went out to LA. I stayed a couple of weeks with the guys in Buck Cherry, and got to know a lot of people. I got to know Stefan Adika. That was about the time I met him.
Hmm.
And then I decided to just pack up the truck and move to Beverly, so to speak. And we drove out to LA in 2001, and then I was there 20 years. I ended up in, in '05, I ended up, during the time that I was there and the time that I had gotten signed to Hideout Capital, I had written songs with Ryan Roxy, and collaborated with Gilby Clarke, and collaborated with so many different musicians. I mean, my first 6 months, I got a call from Slash. I hung up on him twice, because I didn't think it was him. Finally he called back the third time. He's like, "No, listen, this is Saul. I got your demo from Yogi, and we're interested in having you in this band that I'm putting together." And that was a fun adventure.
Wait,
Uh,
what was that? I never heard about that one.
Yeah, they was putting together Velvet Revolver and looking for a front man, and he had been auditioning all of these different people, and my name got thrown in the kitty, and and at the time, I was really focused on finding myself and finding my own career in music, and I really wasn't interested in jumping and being in part of any kind of tribute band or any band that was affiliated with someone else, because there was always these bad stories, about somebody getting involved, crashing miserably, and then and then the next thing you know, you're over because you were trying to be something that you weren't. And I was deathly afraid of being Axl Rose too, because it just wasn't my style anyhow. And excuse me, they kept telling me, well, because I had this, I really loved Scott Whalen, I really loved STP. Whenever that was my go-to band between the Black Crowes and the STP. I think those were the two that I emulated the most. You always pick your paper doll, as I say. And those, that vibe, it was between the Southern rock kind of soulful Detroit, sound mixed with the heaviness of the Stone Temple Pilots. And so my look was very Scott Whalen-esque. I had the bright red hair. I think there's only three people in rock and roll at that time that I recall was like Scott Whalen and Johnny Rotten, and that whole dye your hair, crazy color thing. And so I went down that road, and I had fire engine red hair when I moved to LA, and big sideburns that were fire engine red. And I tried to explain this to my son, like nobody looked like me. Everywhere now you see everybody's got different color hair, but with me, at that time, just nobody did that shit. And it was a real, like, whoa, like, real commitment. And, they kept telling me like, oh, you have all this, you're so Scott Whalen. That's exactly what we want. Use that. So I just told them straight out, I'm like, there's two people that should be fronting this band. You only have two choices. You should either get Scott Whalen or Mick Jagger. That's it. If you can't get either one of those guys, then, I don't know what to tell you, because no one else is good. They had, the guy from Days of the New, they were trying out Josh Todd. They were, even some people, friends that I knew that were, everybody tried to weasel in on that gig. And I was just flat out like honest about it. Like, hey, this is, it's an honor, but not my cup of tea. And a week later, they were hauling Scott out with the hood over him, on MTV News, and he was in Velvet Revolver, and I love the band.
Wow. So
fell
you
in
never
love with
even
them.
tried out. You refused to even do the tryout, because I know they
Well,
had that
it wasn't a
documentary.
refusal. It wasn't a refusal in any way. It was just like it was just. I guess that I'm I'm honest to a fault. I've learned in my old age now that my approach to things weren't selfish at all. They were honest and true. I wanted to, and I still in this way. I want things to come organically, and I want them to come when they should come.
Mhm.
I don't like pushing the envelope. I don't like, expecting things, because it always leads to disappointment. And so I took it with a grain of salt. I mean, I was really flabbergasted at the interest in my voice and my style from such heavyweight guys. And what that showed me is that I could do it, like I didn't, if, and I think that's kind of in some ways where I had gone wrong in my career, is that I always expected, because so many things were coming and so many things had come to me, that I just expected the next thing. It was like, if this is coming, something better is coming down the road, and it always did. But there's some things I look back upon and go, I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have pushed that one aside, or I shouldn't have taken that so lightly.
Yeah, that could have been a great opportunity. What was there other things like that you're saying that you pushed aside, other opportunities that you?
Well, I think so. Yeah. I mean, just different phone calls that I got that, I mean, I don't think that they were things that I regret pushing aside. There was just things that, after that, I really kind of got into it where I'll try anything. I'll go over anyways, I'll write with anyone. And I did. I would never deny anything musically that somebody offered me at that point, not a career wise, but, just going and doing, I mean, whenever going back into Detroit, I had an opportunity to to audition for Rent, the Broadway production when it was blowing up, and they were coming through Detroit. They were looking for a certain type of artist for the production, and they weren't letting anybody know what they were looking for. And I had a day gig in Detroit. I was an auto designer, usually aftermarket parts and things like roof racks and emblems and panel trim and things that were hinges and things like that weren't so prominent on the vehicle because I was young and coming into the industry. But I worked for the big three, and that was my day gig. And I remember getting a call from Kelly Brown, who was a big alternative DJ in this Detroit rock station, and she said, there's this audition for this movie that you should be in. You got to go, and I signed you up. And I went, oh shit, I got to work. When I get off of work, I'll go down there. She's like, okay, we get off of work, go down. So I go down to what was it? It was in Detroit in Harmony Park at some theater or something, and they had there had to be like 1,200 people there. I mean, everybody who could sing, from the girl who did the national anthem at the hockey games to everybody who did commercial work, and any musician was there. And I was like, they come on, they had a list paper, folding paper. I was like 11 pages, and they're putting my name down. I'm thinking, shit. And I'm standing around, I'm hobnobbing with people, and I look at my watch. I'm like, I gotta go. This is enough. This is the wash. I'm not gonna sit around and wait for this shit. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know if I want to do it. And had no clue. And I went to the desk. I said, I'm gonna bail. And the girl goes, well, who signed you up for this? And I told her, and she goes, well, Kelly Brown. Okay. And she knew Kelly. So she goes, you're next, and I'm like, okay, I'm next. So long story short, I ended up going for 4 auditions and ended up getting offered an understudy position for the lead role in that production. They were looking
Wow.
for an African American girl for the certain part, and they were coming to Detroit obviously to do these auditions. But they thought if they collected at someone else, they got lucky. And at that time, I was in the studio next door with my band Broken Toys, and we had this producer Greg Ladani, who was he had produced and engineered the Toto records and the band Church and all, and he was an LA guy, and we were at the time where kind of auditioning different producers and different people that were interested in us. So we would do 2 or 3 songs with them to see how it worked out, and I was doing that with them, and yeah, they had Dateline come in, and I'm walking out as they're telling me that they give me, we want to offer you this position and send you to New York. And then I was on Dateline Detroit, and so I'm in there I didn't tell my band. I'm in there with my band in the studio. We have lunch. We go to the bar to have lunch. They got me on TV interviewing, and what is this, And at the time, I just, Broadway to me was tights and, and a lot of left-handed cigarettes. And, and I was kind of like, this isn't my bag. I don't know if I want to do this, go to New York and make a career out of being, an understudy in a production I really don't know or care about. I just didn't, just things you don't understand in your youth or when opportunity comes, and if you're not mentally prepared or experienced in that area, then you don't take it as serious or as so there was a lot of things that went on in my career that were like that, where there were opportunities, I guess, given that at the time didn't seem like the right opportunities for me. And so, it's easy to look back and say, oh, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, the world would be a wonderful Christmas, but
Wow, that's interesting though. Yeah, because it did make me wonder, listening to some of the music that you've done that's out there on Spotify. I'm like, oh, this is good stuff. I wonder why, this didn't take off. And then obviously you had the song that you did co-write with Kid Rock. Tell me the story about that. That song's called "I Am." That was a single. It was on the rock radio. How did
yeah,
that come about?
it was a collaboration with a bunch of people, really. I mean, and it was everyone was trying to feed me material because they were trying to prep me to be the next Kid Rock or the next Bob
Mm.
Seger. And I'm in my 20s. I'm just throwing stuff at the wall. And I think when Bob was coming around to do his self-titled record, there's a lot of emulation there. I don't I don't feel I know the credit that I deserve of just being a part of the Detroit scene and doing the things that I have done. And I mean that in the most humble way. Just you emulate different people and celebrities, they're never gonna tell you who they're who they're emulating or
Hmm.
who they think is cool or what little pieces they're picking up along the way that ultimately makes their persona and who they are. And I was trained by Johnny B and classic rock guys and during the time that Kid Rock was rapping with a high top fade, and hanging out too short. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I think when it all was going on with him to combine rock and rap and this edge and discovering who this is and with Jason Flom and Lava Records and everybody involved at Atlantic that he was kind of trying to get into. Everybody was just like, try this and do that, and so I think him and I had always had some form of uh duality or I don't know if that's the right word, just commonalities, I was never a rapper. He was never a rocker. It's just kind of like I don't know. He it always felt like we were really close even though we were different.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of the people in our same circles gravitated towards me and gravitated towards each other. And everyone always assumed that we were like best pals, and that wasn't the case at all. We never really gelled because I think it was just I think ego got in the way really. And when he was doing his self-titled record, he wanted to be more southern rock and
Hmm.
rocky, obviously, and country.
Okay.
And I had already was heading down that path, and some of the material crossed ways, and it just that's how it landed on there. And then ultimately, he was managed by Punch Andrews, and so was I. So, we were sharing the same management, and eventually, and it just kind of all, we all intertwined. I was hanging out with the Silver Bullet Band. He was hanging out with the Silver Bullet Band. We were running in the same circles, but he would kind of come in one door and I would go out the other,
Hmm.
or vice versa. We never got together to collaborate. And every time we did, people would go nuts. But that's not what he was looking for. His collaborations were much larger, and his plan, obviously, as a genius artist, which is what I would say about him, and an incredible performer. He knew what he was doing. A very smart individual. Me, I guess I was just along for the ride and everything that I've done. And I mean that like I'm always waiting for the next thing. I was always excited to be there, happy to be there, happy to be a part of it. I never looked at it like I was the commanding force of doing this, and why this was working is because it all come out of here. I always felt blessed to be a part of anything. And so, looking back into a lot of it, I think I could have made better decisions if I would have had a larger ego in the business sense, and had larger expectations for myself instead of just appreciating which I do every single moment that I have and had and the relationships that I made and the memories that I made, and things like that. So yeah, I Am was a song about, being a part of America and being able to relate to, each state in the union and the differences in people and some of the experiences along the way. I think he gravitated towards that kind of thought process, and he was able to, inject his experiences, which were vast, into that song and make it part of the record, which I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. So you say he's really smart. It's interesting, yeah, because you're right. He did have the fade, and he was like a kid and play kind of rapper, and now he's more like a redneck rocker country kind of guy. So is some of that kind of maybe just an act? Like when he shoots the Bud Light cans and that goes viral. I mean, there's a part of me that goes, in a way, that's smart on him because every news site is picking that up. And I don't know if he really meant the hate towards Bud Light or not, but I mean that clip went viral. So is some of that calculated?
I don't. I can't speak for Bob's thoughts personally. I can't, I don't know. I question his motives sometimes myself. I don't know what the numbers are for him. Like for somebody to say, well, if you make that video, you're going to capture this many people and you're going to lose that many, and then
Hmm.
let's do the math. I don't, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure
I
he's
don't know.
lost the people that don't like that side of him. Those people left a long time ago.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think it's all anymore. It's a big clown show, and that's part of that's the thing, man. I'm a real type of guy who, I mean, it's hard to describe yourself, but I've always had integrity with my art. I'm an artist. I don't limit myself with just music, or I do as much as I can artistically, and try to just it consumes me. It always has. So just like the story of karaoke, and and how it all became, me into a band, and then rocking, and having a career. Um, I just everything comes, it comes from one source to me. It comes from above, and you either recognize it and go with the flow, and let it be what it's going to be. Anytime I ever got too much in my head or took it too seriously, I fucked up. Really, I said the wrong things or did the wrong things. As for him, I just kind of think, well, you know it's like confetti and little people, and that's the difference. I would never think of that shit. You know what I mean? I don't want a clown show in my show.
Hmm.
I always wanted to have real mainstream songs that had impact. I always wanted to have a hit song, really, and be in that realm of something that made a difference, musically. For him, he's gone in so many different directions, and so his I guess, to answer your question, do I think, I don't know if if that's really him. I believe that he's very patriotic. I think that he's smart in how he feels about America, how he feels about the way things are going. I think that, I understand, his feelings of his direction. Do I agree with shooting Bud Light cans and all of that shit? No, I think it's kind of ridiculous. Do I think it's real? Yeah, I think that he's the kind of guy, you never met a motherfucker like me. He's the guy who comes in and, you know what I mean? And he's very witty and sarcastic, and kind of, comes off the cuff and doesn't give a shit who he insults, and and that kind of thing. And I'm not like that.
But
I
you're
don't
saying that you think that maybe you should have been a little bit more like that. Like you said that you thought you should have had more ego, maybe been more aggressive in pursuing things.
I just think that, I think, in my opinion, okay, I think that 90% of the entertainment industry is fucked up. I think that 90% of them out there have, uh, a lot of hidden issues and huge inflated egos, and take themselves and the process way too seriously. And not to say that I didn't get caught up in that a little bit in myself in my youth, trying to understand how to fit in, or which direction should I go. But when it boils down to it, my heart isn't was never into it, because any direction I turn, or any business situation, or any song collaboration, or anything that felt good, was always fucked up by some ego, some offer, some monetary value, some kind of something that wasn't a part of what it really was. And I think that a lot of artists can get caught up into that, no matter what level that they're in. And it doesn't define you. It doesn't make you, it doesn't make you a better person because you have had extraordinary success by being an asshole, or not. So whenever I got a taste of that, and continual taste of it, I really got burnt out by it. I just got tired of it. I got tired of everybody's angle, and instead of just me being an artist and, hey, saying, hey, it's like, I mean, I guess, you know, not in any comparison, but of feelings. I mean, think of Jim Morrison or somebody like that that's really, you know, doing it and living it and doing it for the right reasons. And then everybody's in their fucking ear telling them how they should be, or don't turn left here, turn right there, you know. And when you get enough of those people around, be it your guitar player, be it your manager, be it your tour manager, be it, you know, whatever. It's just too much, man, and it takes an extremely tough and I don't think anybody in this business has gotten anywhere without fucking somebody over really hard, and you have to be that type of person.
Wow.
So you have to be the type of person that says, you know what, I know I'm gonna fuck those four guys over and ruin their lives, but that's what I gotta do. You know, if I want to have the showcase at the big arena, you know, I'm sorry, somebody's got to go, and I was never that guy. And so, you know, I have a lot of other derogatory things about myself, I guess. You know, but that I never was that guy,
Hmm.
you know. And so, you know, I think that's the difference. And I think that's the difference in success. I mean, I really do. I think that, you know, I think that everybody at the top has gotten there for a reason. They either pulled their pants down and bent over, they either got on their knees and got under the desk, or they somebody else did on their behalf.
Hmm. You don't think it's just like hard work and perseverance and a
I
combination
think
of
that's all
talent?
included. I think that's all
Okay.
included. How many people do we know that work their ass off and have perseverance that never get one single shot? So hard work and perseverance, yes, if you want to live your dream, but you have to set the expectations of your dream. If you you know what I'm saying? If you set your level really high and you work your ass off and have perseverance and you don't reach that level, does that mean you didn't work hard enough or you didn't persevere hard enough? I mean, I think that it's all combined, but really, I mean, look at the media today and listen to it. I mean, if things were, I think if things were really genuine and you know and heartfelt things that we would think and hope that it would be, then I think that the face of entertainment would be different. Um, I think we would have all of the genres intact moving forward on an equal level. I think people would appreciate music in all levels and on all different ways instead of, you know, well, you're down here and you're up here and you even though you suck, it's because you know so and so and you were here and you're here. You know, it's I don't know if I'm explaining it well enough, but I just think that it takes all of those things and that particular section in which I'm speaking of, it can I wasn't encouraged enough because of all of the bullshit to continue working my ass off to give it to somebody else or have somebody else come in and take the credit or have to give pieces of it to somebody else who didn't deserve it or have somebody else decide whether I was working hard enough or not, you know, or whether I, you know, whatever their opinion was, you know, they were going to speak for me in my opinion. You know, I didn't want to go through all that bullshit, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody really at this point. If my son said I want to get into the music business, I would say, you know, I would give him the exact same description I'm giving you, and hope that he would understand that you know, it's like swimming in the clearest and cleanest pool of water knowing that there's 40 sharks out there waiting for you, you know. And
Damn.
you can see the island with all the hot chicks in bikinis waiting for you to swim over, and there's no, you know, war shark warning signs, and you're jumping in and you're the best swimmer in the Olympics, you know. Good luck. You know what I mean? So if you make it fast, then you're, you know, there you are, you're on the island full of coconuts and hot chicks. If you don't, you know, if you're not fast enough, the sharks bite your legs off. So, you know, that, to me, that's the entertainment business. And
Wow.
you know,
That's
and
interesting.
I know I sound like doom and gloom when it comes to it, but man, it's just, it's, you know, I mean, I want to encourage people to could live their dreams because that's what I do. I live my dreams, but don't limit yourself in your dreams. You know, don't think just because you get a phone call from Slash, you're the greatest, and don't think because you don't, you're the worst.
That's well said. Exactly. Well, yeah. But let's talk about your album that you did, your solo record. You co-wrote the songs with and he played guitar too, Keith Nelson from Buck Cherry, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
then that was the song that you also co-wrote a song with Ryan Roxy, and then Jimmy Ashhurst played bass. He's also from Buckcherry. Did they tour with you, or did you tour with a separate band?
No. I had a separate band. I had a bunch of great
Okay.
guys that really had no experience in touring or
Hmm.
playing live shows. I grasped anything I could in the process because, that's another thing. I had worked my ass off in LA and had made all these relationships and things with these great musicians that really believed in me. And I believed in them. They're awesome. And we had incredible relationships, incredible times, worked very hard, developing the material and recording it and all these things. And I sent it back to Detroit to basically sell it, to see if there's a way that anyone commercially or any other artists out there would be interested in it, if there's anything I can get going. And they sent me back 13 songs and said, "You're gonna do this record." Wow, and put me in Capitol Studios and got the whole deal rolling. And I wanted Ryan Roxy to play guitar. I think at the time Ryan was very interested in as well in being in a band. And my management was like, nah, he's too old. He's no offense
Was
to
this
Ryan.
before he was in Alice Cooper?
No, he was in Alice Cooper. He was
Okay.
still playing with Alice Cooper. But I think that, this was a time when Alice had other focuses. There's, things
Sure.
now. I'm glad things worked out the way they do because I mean Ryan's one of the most incredible people and musicians that I've ever been affiliated with or known. I mean, he was always honest, always straight up with me, always gave me 100%, welcomed me into his world and his home. Just an outstanding guy. Would love to play in a band with him. We listened back to, not too long ago, there's some of these live things that we did with different rhythm sections that we were trying to put together. And man, maybe we should have went with those guys, or just things that we just you're not aware of at the time. And with Keith Nelson, the same thing. I was close with JB, or and the bass player, the original bass player, Buck Cherry, and I think JB was trying to get things going again with Keith, and so he brought me in to kind of bridge that gap a little bit as a vocalist. And Keith was like, "Nah, this isn't going to work out," and like a couple days later, like, "Do you want to come in the studio and start working with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, that'd be great." So him and I wrote for like a year and a half, just at least 4 nights a week in a little one-room studio, sweating our asses off, making material with different players, Mike Fasano from Tiger Army, and different drummers. We had my buddy Aaron from Kid Rock, Aaron Julison, just different people, Jimmy Ashhurst, and just we're jamming around and trying to come up with things, and possibly having a band. I think that is what really influenced the Buck Cherry reunion with him and Josh Cobb, because I think he was like, "Hey, I'm fucking doing this thing with this guy. It sounded pretty good, maybe we should, pitch Universal again with some of this material and get this band back together." And I think that's exactly how, the revival of Buck Cherry happened. My management, I sent it back to them, and they have a history of creating artists on a mega level, but in a very hard way. They like you to, starve and have to, and they like to say no to a lot of big opportunities. And I was ready to say yes to every opportunity. So every opportunity that seemed to come down my pipe was, they flat out denied. So it was kind of
Wow.
frustrating because it's like, I have these opportunities that I've built in LA, and my management at the time was like, "Nah, we're going to do it this way."
What did they say no to?
Oh, well, I mean, certain things like, just different players, different tour opportunities,
Because you
different.
did end up touring with Ted Nugent.
Yeah, yeah. I toured with Ted I did, I don't know, 12, 13 House of Blues shows with him, all across the country, and others. Um, that was great. I mean, it was a great experience, being out with Ted. Um, I wasn't really, when I went, what I wanted was that I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to have a band. like STP or a band that had, that had a vibe and not have the responsibility of my face and my name and my
Mm.
this and that was all the label's idea and at the
Okay.
time when somebody comes and approaches you with that you're flattered and you can get caught up in that idea and that thought process but I never really wanted that. I just wanted to be a part of a band and have a group of guys that I could collaborate with that and I felt like I had made that connection there. And I think that everybody involved in my music wanted that too. So then when they came back and it was me and it was Huck and it was all of this stuff, it put all of the responsibility on me. And they explained it to me like, hey, if you win, then you're it. You're the reason it all happened. If you lose, you're it. You're the reason it all
Mhm.
didn't.
Like the
And
quarterback or something. Yeah.
yeah, that was tremendously hard on me, I have to say, because it all fell on me or it all rose on me, and I didn't want that at all. And so, and then at a weird time during the music industry, 05, 06, things were transitioning into digital age and nobody knew what was coming or how to deal with it or what to really, how to get the monetary value out of it. And people didn't even know what to charge for recording times because you have Pro Tools, you got all these electronic devices now, and things are
Mm.
coming into play, and so it was just if I'm it's quite some time ago, but remembering it was a confusing time, it was an exciting time, some people got pissed off, hurt, some people were very excited and proactive. It just kind of separated everything. Whereas when I was just on my own in LA and making music and writing songs, that was freeing, and those relationships that I made on my own without any involvement with management or any bullshit. And that's what I was living for, is creating the art. Once the art was created and it was being created, then I mistakenly allowed others to come in and manipulate that situation, and I do regret that.
Gotcha. So tell me about with working with Jimmy Ashhurst, because you also mentioned that you had hung out with the Guns guys and Slash had called you, but Jimmy played with Izzy Stradlin. Does he have any stories of that? That guy is so fascinating to me. I would love to get him on the podcast, Izzy Stradlin. So I'm always any sort of connection to him. I'm always like curious about, like, is there
Oh
any,
gosh. Well,
any insight into his like
I don't recall. I
persona?
don't recall having vast conversations about his time with Izzy. If anything, we talked about the greatness of Izzy and what he really was to GNR, who he really was in GNR.
Mhm.
In my humble opinion, I think he was GNR. I mean, I think that he was the pivotal songwriter, the guy that came in with the solid song ideas, the solid approach to what things were really sounding like. I guess I was always a huge fan of him. No offense to Slash, but more so. And I think that just Two Fingers affiliation with that and his playing ability just spoke for itself. Jimmy Ashhurst is a phenomenal bass player, natural. Bass players either have in my opinion, it's either through their whole body and their hands and their fingers, or it's not.
Mm.
They either have the soul to play that bass. They're either James Jamerson, or they're staying with a pick. So I mean, there's only two types to me. I think Jimmy was definitely has the soul that of Motown and the Allman Brothers and every other great band that you could ever imagine inside of him. So it's just he's just a natural and phenomenal. And he was really great friends with Keith Nelson, and Keith always admired him and looked up to him. And and they were buddies, so I think it was an opportunity for him to get Jimmy to come in and play on some cool stuff, and Jimmy was gracious enough to say, yeah, man, I would love this shit, I'll play all day on this. So he would come in and play all the bass parts, and it was a great guy. He's a great guy. He's over in Italy now. He's over there living the life. I think I see him every once in a while on the Facebook, and we chat through that. You know, to me, he's a real artist, you know, and that's what I love. That's only what I love is the artistic aspect of everyone, what's inside of them as an artist, you know, their soul and who they represent. All the other stuff is just fluff, really, all of it, you know, tattoos to painted nails to glitzy uniforms and with all due respect, podcasts and all that stuff, you know. It's all, you know, that's all the stuff you need to do. You
Sure.
know, what you have is is real soul and talent, and Jimmy's one of those. You know, Jimmy's a legend, no doubt.
Absolutely. Well,
His,
then,
his affiliation with Izzy, I guess I never really had any really big discussions with him about that. It was one of those things where, you know, if you know, you know,
sure.
and you know where it comes from, and obviously, you know, him playing with Izzy, it reflects his abilities, no doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so then you did, because you said initially you were starting something with Jonathan Brightman from Buck Cherry, and then you did eventually have a band with him. You were saying
Mhm.
like you wanted your STP. Well, you had that Black Robot. That's a cool band. Like I love the artwork too that you guys had on the covers and stuff. I was like, this is cool. So talk about that band. And you did a couple albums, and then you did a single, I think, and a few years back. Is that still kind of occasionally active?
You know, Black Robot was a project band, and it was JB's project. He's something that he cooked up, and I think that he had on his in the back of his mind for a long time. And and when I initially went to LA, you know, it was really the first idea of getting something going was getting something to go to Japan. You know, and go and play over there, make some money. And I just wanted to go over there. I'd never been. I still have never been. I would love to go. That's when this can be my first trip that we take as a family. Here soon, shortly, we got we got my 8-year-old passport, and that's where he wants to go. So
Wow.
you know, we want to go to Tokyo. We're going to go to Tokyo. But initially in LA, that's what we were talking about. We were, you know, everybody was kind of in a flux, you know, Matt Sorum, all of those guys, Yogi, you know, everybody was in a flux. And here I was, this new guy in town, and I had the pipes and, you know, and had to look and it worked. And I was running in the right group of people. And so we talked a lot about that, you know, let's get a band together, go over and we'll play all this shit, and we'll do the Buck Cherry songs. We'll do all this stuff, and we'll do it for the Japanese, and they'll go ape shit. And that will create this band of an entity that we want, and so on and so forth. So I think it stemmed from something that JB really wanted to have himself. I don't think that he felt like Buck Cherry was really uh, uh, something that I think he felt that he was losing maybe a little bit of his affiliation and control in that whole process. I think Josh and Keith kind of were you know, wanting to take it somewhere else and things like that. And I think that's why things kind of got a little bit weird with that whole band. And I don't know all of the inner details, or I don't have the room to discuss all of them. But um, you know, when it came to Black Robot, JB came to me and said, "Okay, I'm going to put together a band with all of the original members of Black Robot." And I had already done my record. I'd come off, I had toured and everything, and and came back and decided, like, well, you know, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. You know, do I want to do another record? You know, the reward was like, oh, congratulations. Capitol sent the list of 90 artists that they're dropping, and you're still in there, you know, like, congratulations. You know, and I'm like, you know,
You
these
made
are
the
the
cut.
kind
You
of
made the
rewards
first
I
cut.
got. You didn't get dropped, you know, and I'm like, oh, great, you know, like I didn't get dropped. That's all. That's what I get, you know. So I'm kind of like, you know, so that's, you know, that's how it was for me. So when JB came and said, oh, I want to do this band with the original members, I was like, my advice to him was like, oh, well, you got to go find a Josh Todd. You know, there's so many different 20-year-old wiry kids with tattoos from their, you know, their neck down. And, you know, I mean, yeah, that's what I would do. Put together, go find somebody, you know. He's like, no, I really want you to do it. And I'm like, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't think you know, I don't know if I, you know, I think that here's what I think you should do. he was insistent upon me fronting the band because he said he wanted a more well-rounded sound. He wanted to do classic rock songs. He wanted to do something that was more timeless. He wanted to do something that wasn't just one straight thing, and I got it. So he got Devin and Yogi and myself together. We had some sushi. We talked about it, and we're like, yeah, that sounds good. And his brother at the time, and still was managing Dave Cobb, and as a producer. So he has friends with Dave, cut a thing with Dave, and we went into the studio and created that record. Just basically, Dave, JB, and myself. And then we had Darren Dodd play drums, which was Butch Walker's drummer,
Hmm.
and and uh, and Dave Cobb played a considerable amount of guitar on the record, and it was all cut live in a live room, basically rhythm guitar and drums, and everything else was overlaid into the tracks. And then I did all the vocals and wrote a large percentage of the lyric to go along for each song, and that's basically how the record was made. And Yogi and Devin came in and cameoed on some songs, and they put it out as featuring X Buck Cherry members. We found a guy in Thailand to do the artwork, and tried to emulate this 80s or classic heavy metal kind of style of nostalgia with tangible feel of a band. And we did our best to emulate all of the people that we loved in rock and roll. And that's and then when it came down to releasing the record and putting it out there, we picked up a deal with Rocket Science, which was working Ace Frehley's record at the time, and I think Bruce Kulick's record, and then a bunch of other artists. It was a small indie label in Hollywood, and and then I booked the tour. I had, under a pseudonym, I called and booked the whole Texas, West Coast tour for Black Robot, and we worked the phones and got it on radio, and went and hustled, and put together a band. I forgot to mention we had put together a touring band. So I found a guitarist at a Scott Weiland show, of all places. I saw Andy Anderson there. He had long hair and a beard, kind of a Zach Wilde look. And I just walked up and said, hey man, you look cool. What's your gear list? And then when he told me his gear list, it passed snuff, and I said, "Here's a disc," and of course he flipped out and wanted to be a part of the
Wow.
band, and I had him in we had him in the band, and then we had Stefan Osterlund, yeah, who was another Swede, really great guy, very talented on the other leads. We had two leads, and Possum Hill played drums, and we basically fabricated this band, this touring band, and that was Black Robot. And we did a bunch of shows, and it was fun. About that time, I met my wife, um, and I was feeling it, man. I was feeling it again. The bullshit of the industry. The egos inflating, and the
Mm.
push and pull of people's positions, and all of that horseshit, man. And I wasn't happy about it, and I think it led into a difficulty with some friendships, because I was hitting the stage and rocking out, and hitting the Viper and all of these different places we were playing, and we had a good following, and it was elevating, but people's girlfriends were getting involved, and not mine, just others, and just opinions, and who's going to manage, and money distribution. It was like, okay, two for you, one for you, two, three for me, one, two for you, and eventually it was just kind of like, well, I'm not doing this again,
Mm.
so when I started expressing interest in just being an artist myself, or not really jumping aboard on the craziness again, that was whenever things flipped in the band, and friendships kind of went awry, and then they went on and did another record with another singer that you know unfortunately tanked miserably, and that was the end of Black Robot. But the first record was it came from the heart, had a lot of soul, was created organically, all vintage gear, 2-inch tape, um, really old school, man. We had
Okay, so you didn't have anything to do with it after when it continued on. It had different singers or something.
no.
Okay.
I bailed, and I always felt whenever I bailed or I supposedly bailed, I didn't actually bail. I was told I bailed.
Oh, one of those things. Okay.
One of those things, yeah. And so I was fine with that. I really was. I was disappointed at first, and probably said some things I shouldn't have. And things like that occur, of course, when you're emotionally involved in things. But looking back upon it, I don't have any regrets. I don't have any regrets or ill feelings towards anyone, and that goes for anybody in my whole entire career. Ultimately, the decisions that were made, they fall on me, and everything that I've done in my life, I take responsibility for, and I appreciate every experience. I mean, rock and roll has been so incredibly awesome to me. I mean, I've met everybody in the industry. I have stories that are just irreplaceable, experiences that are irreplaceable. Um, it's been such a huge portion of my life. But it doesn't define me. Again, it doesn't complete the whole. It's not all of Huck. It's just really just a small fraction of the things that I have done otherwise, and so I don't hang on to it too hard. I hope that it has some timeless longevity, and I'm always hoping someday someone will find that Black Robot record and go, holy shit, like this is incredible. But in today's world, without shooting Pepsi or shooting Bud Light cans, you don't get anyone's attention. And
Yeah.
so I come from that mid ground era between like when you had to earn your shit to and in between, phony selling it. You know what I mean? Like, I believe now we're in the phony selling it stage. I really do. I think that there's a lot of shit talent out there.
Yeah.
It's presented like as if it was the greatest things made out of diamonds, and yet you look back in the classic rock days, and whenever things were really made, and you think about the work that we all put into on 2-inch tape, not being able to overdub, not being able to fix the vocals. You either had to have it or you didn't. Those days are gone. Nobody was there with a camera filming it unless they had a VHS camera,
Mhm.
which nobody had. uh,
Right.
there's just there's no look at me. Then it's just you showed up, you did your job, you delivered, and then you went back and ate a TV dinner, and thought, how the hell am I ever gonna, and that goes for everybody, for most, and
Yeah. That's
now
a
it's different.
That's a good point. There's a lot of not only just musicians, but I see like comedians. I have comedians on the show, and I've seen a lot of movies and stuff that are independent, that are really well done, that are well acted, and great stories. And you've never heard of these things, and they're great, they're amazing. And then you see other things that are just total shit, and they're making tons of money, and everybody's watching it or listening to it. I'm like, how this seems like backwards, but yeah, I think it's just like a lot of it's marketing, or like you said, just whoever's the loudest. I think that's a big part of the world that we live in today. It's whoever's the loudest or most controversial, that's gonna get the most attention. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best art.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And being from Detroit, I still know some of the greatest musicians in the entire universe, and they're still there, still making their art, still hand to mouth, and have done some of the most incredible things, and contributed to the real sound of what everyone else is trying to do. And we're really hard in Detroit. You either sucked or you didn't. That's how it is in Detroit. You either suck or you don't.
Yeah.
Not to say I didn't suck. I don't know. I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. But you that's the way you looked at things. I mean, I remember going to see Jack White play at the Magic Bag with 5 people in the audience, and we're hackling him, about the stains on his shirt, and when's the bass player showing up, and I always know when Meg's knocking at the door, it's annoying. It's not in time, whatever. We were just ripping on because there was this, we were able to, it was Detroit, you never knew who was going to pop because everybody was really talented,
Wow.
and you never thought anyone was going to pop because everybody really sucked, so that's just how you were, you supported each other. You went and were always blown away, but you kind of took it for granted, but you took it with you. Like I took it with me when I went out to LA, so I could recognize real talent. And I guess like the Ryan Roxys and the Keith Nelsons and those types really, I'm proud that they recognized it in me, and that I was able to have those memories. And I remember just getting to know Eric Singer. It was just through Ryan Roxy. Would come by Ryan's every day, be writing songs, and there was Eric, in a pair of shorts and that, because he was the drummer for Alice at the time. We're going to tour again. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Maybe we're going to go, and everybody's worried about, and then you fast forward to now, and he's been the drummer for Kiss for what, the last 15 years, and then, Stefan the same way. I mean, all the things that Stefan has done, and Adika, and all the people that he's known and knows, and I was fortunate to be able to, be introduced to all of these people on a level that they respected, and I'm very thankful for all that. I really am, and those experiences in Hollywood that I had, I'll never forget, man. I mean, it's not every day some punk from Detroit that sang karaoke got to record at Capitol Studios and make a record and put it out in his name and go and hustle it. It's the Lord has blessed me every second, man. So I'm just waiting for the next thing, and I'll be ready for it whenever it comes, and decide if it's right for me or not musically. Do I still play around here? Yeah, I still make music. I mean, I make music all the time. I just I don't. I'm particular in how I want to present it and who I want to present it to anymore, just because everybody, everybody takes things again a little too seriously sometimes, and I'm at a different point in my life where I want to make sure that if I do something again musically, that it's 100% fulfilling for me, and
Hmm.
that my agenda or my ultimate goal is in the right direction.
Sure. Yeah. So you say you had these stories, these irreplaceable memories and things. Is there any other stories that you want to tell, like something that stands out? You're like, oh, I should tell this story. This is a good story.
Oh man. I mean, without throwing everybody under the bus, you know what I mean? There's just so many different things. When I first moved to LA, there was just so many different situations that I was in. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story that you might think so. It involves JB. One night we went out, we went to this place, it was, what was the name of the hotel? It was the whiskey bar, we used to call it, but
Oh,
the hotel was, the the marquee, the Sunset Marquee had this,
okay.
right? And it used to be right behind the House of Blues, And we went in there one night, and there was all of the girlfriends of the Cult. They were out on tour. And we know all those guys, Billy and Matt, and so there it was all like either their wives or their girlfriends, and very attractive, and so everyone smoked at the time, so we were sitting with them, and they all knew JB. JB is very personable, so he knew a lot of people in Hollywood, and so we come in there, and there's all these hot girls, and we're sitting around and talking with them, and so we stand up to go and have a cigarette, which was about, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away from where they were standing outside in the patio, and never all the doors were wide open, so you could see everything going on, and we're smoking a cigarette, and here comes George Clooney in and sits down, hey, to the girls, and sits down in our seat. We had two seats there, and sits down in our fucking seat, and we're smoking a cigarette. And I remember we're looking at him like, and I said, who the fuck does this guy think he is? And JB was the type of person where things burned him, and he was passive aggressive. He's a passive aggressive guy, so kind of like it burned him. You wouldn't really know, but I could see it fucking burning him. So he goes, "Oh, I'll take care of this." So he went into the lobby, and he got on the house phone, and he called the front desk. He's like, hello, this is so and so. I have important. I'm looking for Mr. Clooney. I have an important message. And so So he comes back, and I'm still smoking. So he goes, "Oh, watch this." And so, so the maitre d' or whatever comes over and says, Mr. Clooney, there's a phone call for you, and oh, he's like, oh, he's so impressed, hold on a second, ladies, I better take this one, and he gets up and he answers, there he is on the fucking house phone, and then we come back and sit in our seats, and there's no seat for Clooney now, so he comes back and we're like, who's on the phone, George? Oh, hi, hey, George, did you get a call, who's on the phone? Or the guy, I remember him looking at us, like fuck. And it was really great how it was a pivotal move because you got George Clooney. I'm a Clooney fan still, but I mean, to me, I was like, fuck Clooney. I mean, like the guy's he's got going on so much. He's so handsome, and he's fucking George Clooney. At the time, I'm like, geez, George Clooney comes in. Of course, all the girls are gonna. But it was really neat because when he got up to go get the phone call, there was no seat for him. So when he came back, he was standing there as the odd man out. And we had our seats back, and I was always proud of JB. To,
Yeah, that's a ballsy move.
yeah, get Clooney out of the way. But we had a lot of fun back then, and during those years, I think between really in the 2000s, there was a time when we were all just hanging on, and going to the Cat Club. Slim had that place, the Cat Club, down in Hollywood and Sunset, and at the time you're like, oh, the Cat Club, but I'll never forget those days. I mean, everybody came in there. I played with everybody there at the Cat Club. I was always blessed because Ryan would say, come on up and sing some songs. I mean, and I'm looking behind me and I think I have all these memories of playing with, all of these super duper musicians, and they were at my disposal. And it was no big deal. You know what I mean? I was one of them, and some said they were, we're going on tour. Oh, we got this, oh, I'm going out with so-and-so, Dizzy Reed was in there playing all the time. I remember, going over to like Thal's house before GNR was, kind of really getting cruising. I mean, it was also in the Black Robot Band. It was also nice to have like those guys really dig in. I'd get hit up all the time from those type of guys, going, wow, this record's great, and they were really appreciating what we were trying to do. And that always made me feel good, to be appreciated on that level, and still be able to, have the friends that I have, from 20 years ago, even here in Nashville, and be able to reach out to these guys and they pick up the phone for me, so again, I'm happy to have that. I'm happy to have all of the experiences and the friendships and the collaborations I made, and the reputation of being a strong vocalist and somebody who shows up and delivers. And there's not many of us left, I would say. So I got a million stories. Some of them I'm waiting to put them in the book. You can read them in the book of Huck that
Okay.
will be written, because I'm working on it now, just because
Okay. Wow.
my mother keeps pushing me in that direction, and starting in Detroit as a karaoke singer, I think I have a lot to tell.
Sure.
And the variations of musicians that have come in and out of my life, and experiences that I've had. They've been great. I've been from New York to Texas, Detroit to LA, and I got a story for everyone. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're wanting more stories, I'm gonna have to think about who's gonna be listening and watching before I can tell them to you.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's awesome. And then talk about the hats that you're making, Huck's
Oh,
Hats. That's
well,
kind of your
yeah,
main focus right now, right? Is the hat stuff?
it is. It is. I've been making hats. Yeah, I make custom hats. I make them out of either vintage or new cape lines, primarily beaver felt, which are the materials that last a lifetime. Mostly resist all, and Stetsons are made from beaver felted fur, which is it's blown, into a cape line. If everyone knows how felt is made, it's the same concept. Just using animal fur instead of wool or cotton. And so I got into that when I moved to Franklin. I I was a big fan of some hat makers, and as an artist, I just I never wanted to spend my money on what they were offering, and I always had this idea that I wanted to create my own custom hats. And I had gone out here locally and met a guy that had been affiliated with Franklin for 30 years and knew everybody from Nashville to here. And I made this hat, and I always wear it around town, and people are always complimenting me on this hat. Where do I get that hat? Where did you get that hat? So I told this gentleman I made this hat. I'm interested in making more. If I could get into the festivals here in town, I think I would. I think that would be a really great idea for me to sell hats. And he says, I think I can get you into the festival. So I did my first festival last year here in Franklin. It has over 200,000 people coming through. It's one of the biggest street festivals in the country, and there's a lot of wealth here in Franklin and in Nashville and Brentwood area. Of course, it's growing every day, and so I made I don't know, I handmade 35 hats. I brought them to the festival, and I sold 27 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, they put me in all the papers and magazines here. I signed up for all of the festivals for the year in Franklin, and I did Pilgrimage last year, which was a big rock festival they have, or big concert here that they have, country rock or whatever. Two large stages, probably about 300,000 people come through that. It's in a big farm here. Homestead Festival, which is another big one in Columbia, Tennessee. Had Kevin Costner play there as the artist last year, and it's a real refined festival that we do. And so yeah, I started taking custom orders and making them for different people, getting calls from celebrities and different people that I knew in Hollywood, going, "Holy shit, you're making these hats!" And the orders started coming in, and I've been hand making custom hats ever since, hand over fist.
Yeah, that's so. What C. Thomas Howell, somebody that wanted to buy one, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, right? Some pretty big
Yeah,
names.
yeah. I made one for Jake Kiszka from Greta Van
Greta
Fleet
Van
from
Fleet, yeah.
uh, let's see.
Bryce Soderbergh
I
from
just
Lifehouse.
Yeah, I just made one for what's the Chris Barrett from the Barrett Arms Company, that his dad invented the 50 cal rifle,
Oh,
shoulder
wow.
rifle. His company's really huge. Who else do I have coming in? Jimmy Hall. I'm just going to meet with Jimmy here this week. I made the last hat Jeff Beck wore before he passed. Uh,
Wow.
I just, it's been great, man. I mean, the different people that have hit me up for hats, and I made one for John Wayne's grandson, Brennan Wayne, who is the Mandalorian. He's the guy in the suit for the Mandalorian.
Oh.
Um, it just keeps on Taylor Lynn, Loretta Lynn's granddaughter. I made one for Waylon Jennings' grandson, Struggle Jennings. Um,
Oh,
you
he's a
know,
big musical artist himself.
yeah, oh yeah, yes, oh
Oh,
yeah, he's huge. They just keep coming.
cool.
And I like to do them for I don't know. I like to do them for people that are I guess kind of I don't know. I'm keeping my integrity. You know what I mean? I'm not going and fishing around and looking. I'm making one for Clint Eastwood's daughter. Um, Geez, I mean, just people that like I've been blessed that way. I would love to have Bono from U2 wearing one of my hats, of course, or some of these country stars that are really great and really huge that wear hats. But I'm just kind of taking it as the Lord brings it. I make a lot for people here locally that know quality. I make quality materials and quality hats. I don't cheapen out. I use artifacts from we're in the one of the largest Civil War areas that when we had the bloodiest battle of the Civil War here in Franklin. So
Hmm.
I get artifacts from that because it was so large and so vast. Some of the historical places I can go and have friends there, and I'll get buckles and things like that, and I make all
Wow.
the banding and all of that. I hand sew all of the sweatbands. I custom liners. And I do it all myself. I block and shape them. If I get an old hat that's 50 years old and it looks like shit, I'll make it look brand new. most of the time I take it, rip all the stuff out of it, clean it up immensely, steam it, reblock it, and make it into a brand new hat and make it look old again.
Yeah.
So, different styles, different shapes, doesn't matter what it is. I can do it. If you have a dream hat, if you watch 1883, or if you watch Yellowstone, or you watch some of the old westerns, I made the Rowdy Yates, I've made the Rawhide, Lucas McCain, I've made them all, and they're all individual. I never make the same hat twice. So once you get a Huck hat, it's yours, and no one else will have it. And I don't make them out of cheap wool. Like I said, I make them out of really high quality stuff. So hopefully they'll last your lifetime and your kids' lifetime and your grandkids' lifetime.
Very cool. Yeah. I'll put the website in the show notes, and then I always end promoting a charity or cause. Is there a charity that's near and dear to your heart you want to give a shout out to here at the end?
Oh wow, of course. Well, there's Heartstrings, which is a charity run by a beautiful friend of mine, Amy, and she's in charge of making sure that everything is on the up and up over there. And what they do is they combine music with veterans
Oh,
and contribute all of these things musical. They have songwriting events, and they give guitars to veterans signed by different artists. They collaborate with a lot of different country artists and rock artists and just musicians in general, completely supporting the cause of the veterans and those that have served. um, I contributed to their cause. I contributed to the Friends of Williamson County Shelter here. So for the animals, I'm doing a benefit for them. I do a benefit for the Harpeth River, the Conservatory, which is the people who take care of the river here to make sure it stays clean.
hmm.
Um, you know, I St. Jude has an auction right now in Nashville, where you can, only select items and people that are involved in this package that you can bid on and win, and you'll get a Huck hat included in that. So I contribute a lot to different charities. Only the ones that I think I'd like to contribute to all of them. I commend those who put themselves out for others, and these particular charities that I mentioned are top to me. Veterans, animals, and kids. That's the way I go as much as possible. And then again with nature and keeping things clean and non polluted for the generations to come. That's important to me as well. So those are the ones that I support. You can find
Absolutely.
them on my website, which is the Huck Off or Huck Off. Hey, if you want to hear some music, I tell you what, if you want to hear some Huck Johns music, you can go to www.huckoff.com, and it has just songs. I'm not trying to sell any songs. I'm not trying to link them anywhere. I just want people to hear the music. And you can go on my website and you can just hear my music. You can hit play, and then you can hit play on the next one, and you can hit play on the next one. They don't link to anything. They don't make me any money. I just want people to be able to listen. And if you like something out there, of course you can go buy it. But that's a chance for you just to go and listen if you want to hear it. And if you want a Huck hat, you just go to huckhats.com, and all the hats that I have made there are available. You're not going to get that exact hat. You're going to get something that's a little bit different, but close,
Yeah.
because you can take that style. You can order it in your size. If you want it in a particular color, I can make it happen. And then you just reach out to me. You'll be discussing directly with me, and we'll get to work on your custom hat. And if you have a dream hat, I can make it. If you want Slash's hat, I can make it. You want anyone's hat, I can make it. And
Okay.
and it's going to be high quality, and it's going to be your dream hat. And I try to make them for everyday wear. I try to make them for people that aren't usually accustomed to wearing hats.
Yeah.
That's been amazing. It's that's another thing. It's been a gift from the Lord. I've been able to give people confidence that maybe wouldn't have had it otherwise. It's amazing to see people come and put a hat on and go, holy crap, and it just changes everything. And then they're kind enough to tell me some of the experiences they have wearing them, which are positive. And so it's been a real joy for me to be able to do this and create my art and have people appreciate it.
Yeah. Very cool. Hopefully we'll get the word out a little more here with this podcast, and maybe you'll sell a couple hats, and that's awesome.
Oh, I'm sure, Chuck.
All
And
right.
you come really well well represented as well, and well spoken of. Stefan and the guys there that, I know some people in the podcast world, and they speak highly of you, and they're proud of your endeavors. So I hope you keep it up. And I see you've had some really great interviews, and I'm really happy and proud to be a part of it, and your interest in me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun. We'll stay in touch and let me know about the book when that comes out. You come back and talk about it.
I'm working like a wet cat, man. I got all kinds of things going on. And that's one thing about me, man. I got a lot of irons in the fire. And if anyone wants to know anything about me, I'm a true artist. I really am. I'm multifaceted, and I really try to create things that are going to last. Hopefully hopefully you'll see Huck Hats on the Antiques Roadshow, 2050. You know what I mean?
Very cool.
That's what I'm shooting for. And in music, all I can say to anybody who's listening is that, I encourage anyone to live their dreams. I think that's the most important thing. My dream has always just been to be a great artist. I've always wanted to have a hit song, of course, and I think someday I might. I'm never going to quit trying, but that's the important thing there. You just never quit trying. You never quit or give up on you. Believe in you, believe in yourself, no matter what it is, no matter what you want to do, no matter what you want to try. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't do something. You can do it. If one man can do it, another man can do it as well, or woman. And that's the way I believe. So all you kids out there that maybe are feeling discouraged or have your doubts, no, never doubt yourself. Just hang in there. Keep swinging, and eventually you're going to hit the home run. I promise you.
Very cool. Well said. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Huck. I'll talk to you later.
It's been my pleasure, Chuck. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks.
All right. You too. See ya. My thanks again to Huck Johns. You can hear his music for free on Spotify or his website. And also check out his hats. They're very cool, make a great gift. And you can support this show and Huck by sharing this episode on social media. And of course, you can follow both of us on there as well. We appreciate all your support for the show and the guests. Have a great rest of your day, and shoot for the moon.